Center, and welcome to you all. I'm personally very pleased to hear about this Silk Road, especially after what you wrote about Salik and Salaka and traveling the spiritual road and then weaving it together with the Silk Road, your life experience. We're really looking forward to it.
Thank you.
I think in terms of logistics, we're going to because Asr prayer is 5:45, 5:45. So we're going to keep going to that and then take a small break. And then if after Asr has more after, we'll just continue and then do the Q&A and all this, right? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think I can take it through to the Asr and then, as you say, we can ask questions later, or people can ask questions should you have any. I hope you do.
Welcome.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Well, assalamu alaikum, everybody. Thank you very much for having me. It's very nice to be here. I'm in the best of company, staying with Hajj Abdul Samad in Lolland, and we've come up by train today to this center, which I've been to before, and I'm honored to be asked to speak here. As Caspar said, I will be unashamedly introducing myself a little bit at the beginning, so you can see, I'm not trying to give an overview of every aspect of the Silk Road, which is a huge subject, but I want to talk about my journey on it. And so I think you know the Arabic saying, Ad-jar qabla ad-dar wa rafiq qabla at-tariq, no? That means choose your neighbor before your house and choose your traveling companion before the journey. So I feel I should just introduce myself a little bit because I am your traveling companion for a bit. So that's my initial introduction. The word for traveling companion in Turkic is yoldash. Maybe you know that, yol meaning road and dosh meaning companion. So I want you to feel very relaxed with me. I'm going to guide you through something of my journey so far. I'm going to start at the end. I'm going to start in China and then work back a little bit. This is just an image of the Silk Road. In fact, somewhere near the Pakistan border, a place called Tashkurgan. And we were coming back from there and we just saw this lorry lying here with a spilled load of coal, which gives a bit of a lie to the introduction of all the modern generative electricity, etc., that China is producing. They still depend on coal. And there was nobody there at all, so I could stop and get out and take the photograph. And nobody had stopped really to clean it up. But actually, when I looked, you can see that the driver had a cup of tea here, and he was all right, and then they just left the van here. So starting in China, I want to start with a bit of Chinese wisdom. I carry with me a copy of the Tao Te Ching, which is the book, one of the most famous books on Chinese wisdom. And in order to get to know people, you have to speak their language a little bit. And so I was just going to read you a couple of sections from this book. When people think they know the answers, they are difficult to guide. When they know that they don't know, people can find their own way. So that has been, a kind of memento for me. And I just opened the book, as I do sometimes. As you can see, it's a well-traveled copy. It got caught in a flood. And I opened it today, and what it is, it's kind of guidance to both rulers and also to the self, to the person who's reading. And it says here, number 52, the world has a beginning. That is the mother of the world. Whosoever finds the mother in order to know the sons, whosoever knows the sons and returns to the mother, he will not be in danger all his life long. Whosoever closes his mouth and shuts his gates, he will not be troubled all his life long. Whosoever opens his mouth and wants to set his affairs in order, he cannot be helped all his life long. To see the smallest means to be clear. To guard wisdom means to be strong. If one uses one's light in order to return to this clarity, one does not endanger one's person. This is called the hull of eternity. So, a lovely language, and this was translated by, remind me of his name, I know him well, but Richard Wilhelm, who lived in the German section of China when it was being divided up. And they were there for, 100 years or so. And he went out as a Jesuit to convert the Chinese, but he didn't convert one Chinese person. Instead, he learned Chinese and translated their book, and he was, super impressed by it. It's a very good version. There are lots of versions of the Tao Te Ching, and I set out not as soon as I heard the hadith, but there is a hadith that says, "Seek knowledge even unto China." I mean, that I didn't need much pushing after that. And in fact, as I think I mentioned in the blurb that we wrote for this, my first memories come from Hong Kong. My father was in the Korean War. At the end of it, he was one of the peacekeepers keeping the North and South of Korea apart. And then he was posted to Hong Kong. My mother, my sister, and we went out by ship, and that's where I was about 5, 6, 7 years old. So I have lots of memories from there. And I was, I feel, when I go to China, I feel very comfortable. So I'm going to start at that end, just to show you that the Chinese are coming. They are building these incredible roads up from Kashgar. That is on obviously the Chinese side, where the Seljuks came from, and they are building these fantastic. Oh, how does that go there? What do you call them? Viaducts, road ducts into the mountains. I put this map upside down just to make you think about it, because nowadays I've heard that the Mercator projection is being dumped by many people in the world. I've heard that what do they call them? The BRICS countries are going to stop using Mercator because it makes Africa look smaller than it is. And so I rather like this one because it hasn't got any names on it. And so I think you can see where you are. Where are we actually? I don't think we're in the are we down here somewhere? No, that's Greece. No, we're off.
The map is, I think, is the top of that is India.
That's right. That's India.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Absolutely. So where is the Silk Road?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I should say the Silk Road is a misnomer. There is no one single road. And actually, it was called the Silk Road by a man, Baron von Richthofen, in 1897 or something like that. And it became part of a sort of romance, really, of the East. Previously, it was called the Royal Road by the Persians, or the Royal Roads, and people who've written about it more recently have talked about the Silk Roads, and most recently, the William Dalrymple, who's an India specialist, has just written a book called The Golden Road. And his point is that it isn't just about the road, it's about the sea roads. It's not just about the land route, it's about going by sea. And where did they come from? I need a stick or something, but they come from up in Egypt. Where's Egypt? No, where's Egypt? No, I can't see it. I should. I think I've got. Yeah, is it? Yes, yeah. I think I've got another one next to it. Maybe not. No, that's not. No, I haven't got. Whoops. No, go back. Okay. Anyway, so as I'm going to be quite personal about my journey, and so you need to know about me a little bit. But eventually, I got to China, and as an adult, and I got to the old capital called Xi'an, or Chang'an. It was the old capital of China before Beijing, and this mosque, this beautiful wooden mosque. I think there's another couple of pictures of it. Hang on a second. There was built in the style of a temple by the Tang Emperor in about 1000. So about 1,000 years old this mosque is, and it was an amazing experience for me. And I saw this on one of the gates going towards the mosque, and there happened to be a Chinese specialist teacher from America, and I pulled him over and I said, "Excuse me, what does that say?" Does anybody speak Chinese or read Chinese? No. Well, because I'm not sure about my pronunciation is right. I'm sure it isn't. But anyway, it says one. You can see at the top, yi, and then Jian. Yi Jian, I think it is pronounced. And what does that mean? Anybody know? Well, it means one reality, or one haq. That is how the Muslims went into China, not with Arabic, not with flags, not with that, but they went with that. And I believe that actually they are. Somehow that's incorporated in how the Chinese call them, the people of truth and sincerity. I mean, it means something like that. But I thought that was tremendous. And I met, in fact, somebody from Algeria while I was in the mosque, and so it was like meeting. It was like the two worlds coming together, and we spent the evening together. That was great. There's the mosque. It needs some work now. It is a little bit decrepit, but not too bad. While I was in Xi'an, I was visiting a temple called the Wild Goose Temple, and in it they had a gallery, and this woman showed me what is the most popular ideogram or piece of calligraphy in China. Does anybody recognize that? Come to the front now. Come to the front. Yeah, sure. Please. Does anybody recognize that? I was. It's the most popular, as I say, most popular image in Chinese, and it says something like Fu. And what is Fu? Fu means happiness, success. It means good luck, good fortune. It's everything good. And when she explained it to me, I realized I had a kind of small epiphany, and I think it's the same as the adhan. When we call the adhan, we say Hayya al-salat, Hayya al-falah. Hayya al-falah. Well, what does Hayya al-falah mean? What is falah? Yeah, success, and so it's very, very similar. But and what really clinched it for me is that on the left here is a person who is clothed, okay, and on the right you have one, so you have one person clothed, one, and then this is mouth, and this, anybody like to guess? Not a window.
No, body.
Nearly. It's no. It's your farm. It's your garden. It's your farm. So it means one mouth fed from your own garden, and that is success. That is happiness. That is the best thing you can have in life. And what are we told? We are clothed. We are given enough clothes to keep our back straight, and we are given our rizq, our food, and that seems to me almost identical. So I was very happy to get that, and I think of it, of course, every time the adhan goes. Anyway, what's that? Don't eat it. What? Yeah, a silkworm. Yeah. Well, I felt I should show you something about the origin of the name Silk Road, and so that is the little creature. I've studied them a bit now because I live in Uzbekistan a lot of the time. I'm working there in a university of languages. I'm a language teacher, and I thought that somehow people went around collecting silkworms from the mulberry trees, but of course they don't. Come spring and the cold weather is easing up, what they do is they go to a special depot and they buy, they get given all these eggs, and then they bring them home, and sometimes they turn out of their bedroom. They go and sleep on the veranda, and they put these trays in the bedroom, and they feed the worm. And so they go to the trees, and then when the worms are little, they chop up the leaves very small, and then they give it to the worms, which get bigger and bigger, of course. And then so they don't need to chop the leaves up so much. And so what you see by the roadside is you see these pollarded trees, these mulberry bushes, where they have cut the branches off to take to the worm. And then, of course, what happens? The worm turns into the silkworm turns into what do we call it? The
Chrysalis.
a chrysalis, and then I think a chrysalis or cocoon, chrysalis, and there are some different size worms in the top, and they have silkworms from China, and they have silkworms from Uzbekistan, they have silkworms from Turkey, and they mix them, they hybridize them sometimes, and apparently Chinese silkworms need about half the amount of food of other silkworms, so they want to get Chinese bred into the thing. Anyway, come the day, they've all turned into cocoons, and I don't know how many days or weeks they spend in that state, But what they do at this point is they bring, as you can see, there's masses of them there. They bring them to a special place and they weigh them, and then they get paid for having brought up the silkworms this far. And then what do they do with them? What do you think the next step is? Well, I'm afraid beauty comes with pain, cruelty. I mean, they have to kill them all. They have to kill all the worms inside the cocoon, because if they don't, what happens is then the worm will eat its way out of the cocoon, eating through the threads, and then the threads are broken. So they have to kill the silkworm first. They do that by boiling the water, or they use chemicals now to kill the worm. And then how much thread? You can see the silk that's there. What length of thread do you think you get from one cocoon? Anyone like to get 10, 20 meters? I mean, anyone like to guess? From one cocoon, okay, it's been boiled, and then it's somehow you just have to pick, and then you thread it onto a, what do you call it, a loom or spinner? A spindle. You put it onto a spindle, and then it gets wrapped, and then put into a loom to make things with. Any idea?
100 meters.
100 meters, any more?
200.
200, any more?
Sounds like an auction. It's very little.
What?
It's very little for
Very-
each cocoon.
It's tiny little thing. Is no, we're
Cocoons
talking.
aren't that big.
It's this side, but how long is the thread?
Very short.
50 meters.
1.5 kilometers.
Wow.
Over a kilometer for one cocoon. You know, I mean, and that's incredible. And so, yeah, so they get very, very fine silk threads. And do you know? The Chinese kept the secret of silk making for a long time, but eventually some spies got to China. They were sent by Pope Justinian, but we're from Constantinople. He was sent, I think, in about 500. They went, 2 Nestorian priests went to China, and they smuggled, it must have been in this form, when they were cocoons. They smuggled them back inside a bamboo and got through back. And now you have silk making in Turkey, in Bursa, and in many other places. Not in England. They brought the wrong mulberry to England. They brought the red mulberry to England, and it's actually the white mulberry which the silkworms eat. Any questions on silk? Just because of the Silk Road, I had to tell you that. It is amazing. Okay, so coming back to me, I am an anthropologist, or was an anthropologist, and I did my MA in India, and here am I in 1977, marching through the sands of time. What's happening?
It's just for the camera.
Oh, for the camera, okay.
Just a bit in. It's okay.
Stay here.
Thank you.
And going back to India, because actually my grandfather, there he is, and my grandmother on the right, were tea planters in the south of India. He was gassed in the First World War with mustard gas and had problems with his lungs. And the doctors suggested that he go and live in another climate, a beneficial climate. And about 100 years before, the hills of the Nilgiris, they're called, south of Madras, south of Chennai, were discovered as a perfect hill station and very good climate, rather like Scotland. And so many people started to go there. And they sent my grandfather there after it must have been in the First World War, anyway, we're talking about. And he started and worked his way up in the tea estate, in the tea business, and ended up becoming manager of a couple of estates before partition. And he came back, I think, in about 1953. I can remember him coming back from India as a boy. Then I think it must have been before we went to Hong Kong. Anyway, they say he spoke Tamil, which is the language of Tamil Nadu, and he spoke another language called Badaga, which was the language of the people with turbans. You can see the second row of people, a tribe in the hills. And so as an anthropologist, I grew up with stories from my grandfather about India, and we ate curries and he told stories. And I suppose it may have sparked my interest. And when I first got to India, I went to visit his place, his house. His house is now still available, that he built as a guest house for people interested in buying tea. Just a word about what happened after the British discovered the hills, the Nilgiris. They saw there were tribes, there are different tribes, the Todas, the Badagas, and I can't remember the names of the other ones. They used to herd buffalo in the forest, and they had a system of slash and burn. They would, probably what they do in Brazil today, they cut the forest and then they let the grass grow up and feed the cows and so on. But the British didn't like that, and they banned it. They banned that. So the tribal people had a choice whether to fight or submit to the British, who obviously were much more powerful than they. By this time they had guns, and they had only bows and arrows and things like that. So they decided to go with the flow, and they became the tea pickers. And actually, some of the British who went to develop the station were rather foresightful. They sent for gardeners from Scotland, and they came with plants and potatoes and things like that, and taught the local people how to grow food. And they had become very famous growers of food, plus tea pickers. They go and pick the tea, and I think there's a picture there of them picking the tea, and they just lay their stick on the tea, and then they just pick all the top leaves, and then they make tea. I wish I could make you all tea from my grandfather's estate. I actually went in January to visit it again, and actually, with my grandchildren, we discovered, with a bit of work, we discovered the grave of my great-grandparents, who had settled with their son-in-law, my grandfather, in India after a life of missionary work in Jamaica and the West Indies. But as it turns out, a lot of missionaries decided to settle in the hills here. So we found the grave, and we were able to introduce my grandchildren to my great grandparents. So it was a wonderful moment of family history. In my case, after visiting my grandfather's place, now we're talking about 1977. There's me with my best friend Pushpangadan, and I somehow also similarly was was studying, well, I was doing a village study. And that's, you know, as an anthropologist, that's a kind of common thing to do. And, but I was studying, rather unlike him, the tea planters, I was studying shamanism. I was studying the healing and the people. Of course, there were no telephones in those days. I mean, televisions were just coming into, you know, they were just coming, and they would sometimes have a television in the park, and people would go and sit in the park, you know, in the main city. But in the village where I was, there was nothing. And they were potters, actually. They were the potter caste who made beautiful pots, and I was a potter too. So it was a language we spoke before I could speak with them in their own language, which I did learn, Malayalam, a little bit. Anybody speak Malayalam? So they had these shamans who performed on occasions and would answer questions that people couldn't answer, like what happened to my cousin? He went to Dubai, he never came back. What happened? You know, and then sometimes the shamans would utter, and they, of course, you have to imagine with the sound of drumming, and the noise was phenomenal. And on many occasions, they would come up to me and they would say, "Do you believe in me? Do you believe in us?" And I said yes, because I was looking for proof myself of the ghaib. I would say, now I can say the ghaib. I think everybody knows that word. I mean, I was looking for proof of it. And so I said, yes. But I saw many different kinds of healers and teachers, gurus, and, you know, some, like any gurus, you know, you take with a pinch of salt. Do you really believe them? Do you really follow them? And anyway, I was also down there in Kerala. These were the Muslims, actually. These are Muslim guys. That's Bashir on the left. And I saw him in January. He's now in his 70s. He's got grandchildren like me. But here he's showing me what they call kalaripait, which is stick fighting. But people who know martial arts say that is the origin of martial arts from South India. And anyway, so that was it. What happened then was, okay, then the martial arts, of course, then spread from South India. They went up through India and then across. Yeah, how many? 5 minutes for the yeah, okay. So the journey of the martial arts followed the journey of Buddhism, actually, but I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But just to finish this section of, just before I was leaving, I stayed in India for 1.5 years in Kerala. I was quite lonely in the village. I was the only white man there. And but eventually I met this lady. I was introduced, a relative of Bashir's, the one doing Kalaripait. And she was called Jumaila. She was 16, Muslim. I didn't know anything about Islam at the time. But I went to see her, and took that photograph, and you can see she's a kind of unusual woman, putting her hand out against a tree. That was an unusual pose. And apparently she, from the age of 6, had been able to, she had been given this power, ability to heal people. And so she explained that she had a spirit guide. That's what all the shamans said. They have a guide who helps them, who comes to them. They call on that guide. And as it turned out, she said that her guide was was a Sufi who came from a mosque near Trivandrum, which was not far away, 20 miles away from where the village was. And he would, through her, heal people. And that's a typical kind of explanation that shamans will give. So, so I was getting near the time to come back to England. So I said, well, could you teach me your skill? Can I become a healer? I'd like to have a good job when I come back to England. I'd love to be a healer. That would be fantastic. And so she said, well, I'll have to ask my spirit guide. So we went into her house, and she covered herself with her shawl, and then she uttered some words. And I mean, at the time, I didn't know any Arabic or anything like that. She was probably reciting some Quran or doing some dhikr. But anyway, then he spoke to me through her with a voice slightly different, not very different. But anyway, he spoke to me and asked me some questions, and my answers must have satisfied him, because she said, go home, prepare yourself, and I will come and visit you tonight. Is that the adhan? So of course I said, wonderful. That's exactly what I wanted, you know. And so I went home. I cleaned the house. I cleaned me. I got my close friend to sit with me all night long, just in case I went mad, you know. And then he was there with me. I mean, at the time, I didn't know anything other than making puja. So we had flowers and candles, and, you know, and I did everything I could to summon the spirit. Let's call it the spirit world. Well, something happened. It would be difficult to explain it to you, but something happened. And from that night on, I said, okay, I do believe in the ghaib. I do believe in the unseen world. And what I saw of the unseen world, not much to explain, but I heard something, and it was the sound of a big assembly of people having a good time, not drunk or stupid or anything like that, but just a large assembly of people having a great time. And I thought, oh, I'd love to be a part of that, because I was quite lonely, remember, in the village. And as soon as I said that, a kind of hand came and said, come on, you're nearly there. And that hand has been guiding me ever since. And I can't say that it was Jumaila or anybody, but I feel sure that Allah sent me to her and her to me. And that was the beginning of my journey. And some people say that if you look at above her right shoulder, you see there's a shadow of a man with a beard. Yeah. Can you see that? Yeah. And I don't know if that's a trick of the light or just or what, but that you can see there's someone on her shoulder, and a spooky picture.
He looks like a Sufi.
Yeah, he does look like it. He does look like a Sufi. Yeah. Anyway, alhamdulillah. So let's break here for the prayer, and then we can carry on afterwards, inshallah. Thank you.
After the prayer, please don't rush. This is fascinating. I'm enjoying it. I nearly didn't come.
I thought you were going to fall asleep at one point.
No. Normally I would.
Yeah.
And this is fascinating. I really appreciate it. And I can relate to a story about that as well. I was talking about how our lives are affected by the unseen world. I was in the Philippines. Yes, I didn't go to the You're talking 30.
Back that you'll just keep talking
For a bit.
because we're all getting warmed
All
up.
right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but is it still being streamed?
It's still being streamed, and should still be some sound from the camera.
But it's very weak.
So
But
why
it's-
don't we just put a record on as well, and it can be spliced into the thing. I mean, if people know how to make films, they can just add the soundtrack.
Right.
Let's see if I can. Do you know how to?
Well, to record, I know how to record, yeah. I mean, you just go to that thing, voicemail, so I mean, you can just record like that. Voicemail, yeah, just press the.
So I put it
Well,
where?
the,
Yeah.
right in there, is it?
Yes. Leave it up. That's okay. We'll see how it works.
All right, okay. So, a couple of that, and I accept our prayers and accept our journeys, you know, that we make with greater or lesser sincerity. But I think, you know, when people ask me, how did you become Muslim? And this is the kind of longer story, but the shorter story is one that Allah was generous, so generous to give us, you know, the path, in response to what and mashallah, I mean, now 50 years on, you know, one can really appreciate it. It was quite difficult to start with, you know, especially as I was coming from India, and some of the new Muslims were not very kind towards the Hindus or the, you know, and I had to sort of keep quiet a little bit because I saw the good in everybody. I mean, you tried to, as an anthropologist, you tried to see the good in everybody. Anyway, it was an interesting place to stop. The next picture, who is that? Anyone guess? That's Jumaila, but now as a grandmother. And I tracked her down 2 years ago when I went back to India. I went back to my village and on a motorbike with my same translator on the back, and the one who was in the room with me that night. And that's Bashir, the one you saw doing the fighting, the stick fighting in the background. And this is her grandson, Jumaila's grandson. So what happened? I mean, it's an interesting story. What happened to her shamanism? What happened to her healing? Well, 2 years after I met her, when she was 16, when I met her, she got married at 18. And her husband said, no, I don't accept what you're doing. And so she stopped. And so it was quite difficult to persuade her to meet. But once we'd met and, you know, she saw that I was just wanting to make contact and thank her for that step that I took. And it was fine. It was a great meeting. And so Jumaila and her grandson, and I was able to give some advice in return to her grandson about studying and so on and so forth. But Bashir, the one in the back, I stayed with his son in the village in January, and it was wonderful to go back. I mean, it was like a dream. And I did a film show of photographs from the time that I was there, 50 years. And then we had a nice meal, a really good curry served on a banana leaf for everybody. It was great, and it was the best return you could imagine. So that's one thing I love doing as a traveler, is to go back to places, not to go back to live in places, but to go back and visit and see how they change and how the people have changed. Anyway. So what happened was, oh yeah, well, I'm jumping ahead now. What I haven't got very well organized is the photographs now in an order. So I'm going to probably, I'll just introduce a couple of other themes, because I've stuck mainly in China and India. I need to get to where I am now in Central Asia. But I just to finish the story, I went back after in 1977, or 78 actually, it was April 78, and then I met friends of ours who well, when I was walking down the street, I was and England was cold. They just had advertising hoardings, but not like India, which had gods and spirits and wonderful, reminders of the spirit world. Anyway, I was walking down the road, and a car went by that way, and I caught a glimpse of the driver, and just a glimpse. And I just carried on walking. He went round the roundabout and came back, stopped the car next to me, and said, "Get in, I'll take you where you're going to." And that was Hajj Abdulaziz, Rahimullah. Well, this is where I am now, and he brought me to the path in Norwich, and I met Hajj Abdul Samad, who taught me the Fatiha. I still have it written on a piece of paper somewhere, and he's still my teacher. And I come and visit him as regularly as possible. Alhamdulillah. Okay, so I'd like you to be thinking of questions you can ask me, but I'll just introduce a couple of other themes. We were talking about it on the train here, but about the time of the Prophet's appearance, about that time, Buddhism was flourishing in China, and that is another story which I'm fascinated by. But what happened was it came up from India to the famous, to the Himalayas and near Taxila, if you know, near Rawalpindi, near Islamabad. There was the Gandharan dynasty, they call it. And what happened was that the Greeks with Iskander had come from Macedonia, and they taught the Buddhist craftsmen how to create these beautiful, if you like, heikel, if you like statues, these beautiful statues. And the Buddhas of Bamiyan that were blown up by the Taliban is, an example of what they did. And then Buddhism it didn't go over the mountains, the steep mountains over Tibet. It went round through Kabul, and then round to the what's it called, the Oxus River. What do we call it? Not Sirdarya, the Amu Darya. That's the name of the river, which separates Afghanistan from Uzbekistan. And then the Buddhism made quite a strong print there, which I have some pictures of, which I will show you. And then it went on through Uzbekistan and across into China, and to the capital, Xi'an. And this gentleman here, whose name is Huan Zhan, I think his name is, who was one of the leading monks, if not the top monk, of this Flying Goose temple in Xi'an, made a journey to India to collect the Buddha's teachings. And this, we saw it was about 660, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, it was about 660. So at the time of the Prophet, Buddhism was spreading into China. And guess what? It wasn't just in Pali, which is the language of Buddhism, but it was through Turkic language. So they're very surprised to hear that, the people in Central Asia, when you said. So they took it in, and really it was a peaceful invasion. They didn't have an army. King Ashoka created the Buddhism as the religion of his kingdom or empire. I don't know, kingdom. I think probably Ashoka's kingdom. But anyway, it went into China, and then he came to get the scrolls, to get the teaching, and then translated them into Chinese. And in the same temple in Xi'an, which I recommend if you get there, it's a wonderful place. Chang'an is the old name. It's a 14-kilometer squared city, and you can cycle around the 14 kilometers on top and see everything, the whole city in, down, and then out. It's where the terracotta warriors are as well. If you go there, that's an obvious thing to see. But anyway, and they came back, and then from that, Halim would know better, but Zen Buddhism emerged from this temple. And Zen Buddhism was something that I connected with before I was Muslim, and led me to the Tao Te Ching, which is what I read to you at the beginning. So that was that was one way. And then I just wanted to add an element of the politics of what happened. This is a map of, let me go back in. It's a map of what they call the Great Game. The yellow at the top is Russia, okay? And then the yellow outlined areas are the dates that the Russians took Central Asia. So, for example, Tashkent, where I am, is, I see it there, Samarkand, it must be here. It must be here, but there's Khiva, I don't know. Anyway, it's somewhere here, I can't quite see it it's not very good. And it's 1865 that the Russians came, and then their troubles started. But you can see this is where they took the Caucasus and the Black Sea. You can just see it at the top left there was where the Crimean War was, and where the famous Charge of the Light Brigade, where the British met the Russians, and they fought over these lands. Here's Britain coming up from British Empire, coming up from India, and they took Afghanistan. There were the Afghan wars and so on. And this is where, where the Taliban, they live today. And they were coming for something else. And I have a lot of pictures, but this is an old picture from Iran. What is that? Do you know? It's opium poppies. And as you know, the British used opium as a way of suppressing, and also paying for the goods that they were getting from China. So they were bringing tea and silk and ceramics from China, and they were paying with silver initially. They paid with silver, but then the silver ran out. They couldn't find enough silver to pay for the food, so pay for the goods. So they sold them opium, and then you had the Opium Wars, which are just incredible if you read about them. And if you go to Tiananmen Square, to the big museum there, which is opposite the the People's Parliament, or it's not Parliament, whatever it's called, the People's. And the first exhibit when you go into the museum is the story of the Opium Wars, the shame, they call it, the shame of China. And what happened was that the British took the opium around by ship this time, and they sold it and inculcated the habit of opium consumption, and then they had addicted people to serve, and so they were growing it in Bengal and Afghanistan is another famous place, and then this is Persia. They were growing the opium to sell. The emperor, the Chinese emperor, at one point ordered somebody to stop this trade because he saw what damage it was doing to people. So they, like with the what happened with the Tea Party, the Boston Tea Party, they took the opium and they threw it in the sea. They burnt it all, or they got rid of it. And so, what do you think happened then? So the British sued them and used gunboat diplomacy to get restitution. What's the word? To get compensation from them. And what was the compensation? Hong Kong and Macau and was also so they forced them to continue to take the opium, and I just thought that would just be an element. And of course now, why are the Muslims so unpopular? We've been talking about that in the conversations. It's because we don't partake, we don't participate in these things. We don't drink alcohol, and that is such a huge part of the financing of the place, of the government. They take so much money from the sales of these things. Yeah. Let me just see where I go next. Oh, well, there's the map again. Yeah, so this is the right way up, or at least the wrong way up. No, so from China, this is where the Gandharan thing was. Then it went through Afghanistan here, and then up and round through Central Asia, and across the Taklamakan. This is the Taklamakan Desert. That was where they needed the camels particularly, and then on to China, South Korea, and Japan. And they, of course, being very fond of Buddhism, have come back and excavated a lot of Central Asia to revive and review the stupas and the monasteries that they had established there. But this is where I'm afraid my pictures are not very good. And they're not in a very good order. I wasn't quite sure how we were going to take this. But here's the beginning of the British Empire. So this is the time of the Great Game. It was, of course, Benjamin Disraeli who invented the term the British Empire and made Victoria the Empress of the British Empire. And one can sort of kind of think and calculate now what was being planned in the process by giving Britain this grand thing. Then they were thinking, well, maybe we'll get what we've got now, in the future. So that was the British side. I showed these pictures to another assembly, and there were some Indians in the audience, and they came up to me, but I hadn't finished it properly. I didn't have enough time. They stopped me, and they came up and said that my presentation was what's the word? By when you call it was what's the word? Binary. Uh-huh. They said my binary. There's a word like that, but in binary, I think they said
bipartisan.
Two binary. Yeah, like two binary. And basically that I was separating the British side, my background, and from the Indian side, and by showing pictures of tribal people and people in obeisance to the crown. I was doing them a disservice, but these are images that were produced at the time, and So there's the Feruz is called Feruz Tepe. That's on the river Amu Darya, with Afghanistan is literally just across the river, and this was obviously a big center for the Buddhists, and I mean I haven't got more pictures here to show you, but you can find, you know, streets and places where they stayed and traded. I think just near there, this is Termes, which is the place of people called Termidi. Who do you know from Termidi? Hakim? A Termidi, I'm not quite sure of their relationship, but is it Hakim at-Termidi, who was a collector of hadith, yeah. His tomb is literally 1 kilometer from here. And I was fascinated to find that around his tomb were lots of holes that went underground to little caves. They went down, and clearly they were used for what would you call it? Khalwa, itikaf.
Yes.
They were used for vigil, and they say that sometimes, you know, 5 days, sometimes 40 days. I mean, you know, sometimes longer. And it occurred to me that very likely that the practice of meditation probably came from the Buddhist tradition through, and Islam came and, you know, accepted that, some aspects of that, you know, and they called it, the people there, they call it Chilakhane. Chilakhane, yes? What does that mean to you?
Chilla in the place where person, like at Kaf, person go and don't talk to anyone, but we connect with Allah, we worship. But Chilla, just you go and mediate and cut from the all surroundings.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard it used in Turkey.
It's also in Pakistan Urdu language.
You do, and some people, when they reach the age of 63, the age of the Prophet, they retire, they retreat into a Chilakhane to so as not to be in the world as the Prophet was not in the world at his age. I mean, that's what they say. And, you know, they can be, you know, comfortable or uncomfortable, but it is a practice which the Muslims may have taken. I'm trying to find proof, you know, that we got it from the Buddhists.
40 is still after 40 days. Chalis, you know, we said 40, Chalis still up. It comes from the
Chilla means 40.
Yes. Just like Hazrat Musa alayhi salam, when he went to the 30 days, he went fasted. Another 10 days, you have 10 days more to fasting. So another 40 days fasting.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Chilla means 40.
40 days.
It does, okay.
This is Muslim.
Oh, well, that's useful, thank
We
you.
find that in that tafsir, you remember, the tafsir Sheikh ibn Ajiba,
Yeah,
what you're saying about the 30 days of Sayyidina Musa, and 10 days.
10 days more.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
okay. Okay, that's, thank you. That's the picture of the man who picked me up in the car. And he went round the roundabout and he said, "Get in, I'll take you where you're going." And then, you know, that's what he did, I think, alhamdulillah, this far anyway. So that's another map again, that's that one again. That's that one. I'm sorry, when I was trying to sort out, I mean, that is why the Chinese want Xinjiang. They want the place of the Uyghur people because, you know, it's right on the Silk Road. And as you know, Xi Jinping calls the new Silk Road, he calls it the BRI, the Belt Road Initiative. And it's the biggest economic project in the world. I believe. I mean, it is huge. And it's not a single road either, of course, and it's not just by road or on land, it's by sea and rail and so on. Yeah, so that's the Amu Darya looking over to Afghanistan from the Buddhist ruins there. I'm sorry, I haven't really got an organized thing, so I was hoping that maybe you could ask a few questions and then we can take it from there. Feel free. And I'll just run through what I've got here. And oh well, that's one of the images of Buddha or a Bactrian man from Feruz Tepe that was found near Termez, so near Hakim al-Tirmidhi. So just to show that the Buddhism and Zoroastrianism were mixed up together, and the I mean the science, the mathematics, the algebra, you know, it's all connected with the area, and also connected with India, and because we use the we call them Indian Arabic numerals. What do we say?
Yes.
We say Arabic numerals, but they say, the Arabs say the Indian.
Yeah, Hindi.
They say Indian numerals.
Yeah.
So what happened on the Silk Road, as far as I can see, is that there was just a wonderful blending of people. And where I am in Tashkent, my students, they speak at least 3, sometimes 4, sometimes 5 languages. Russian, English, Uzbek, Persian, Tajik, you know, they have other languages there, and the quality that brings to them is a modesty. They don't claim that they've got the answer. They don't insist. Maybe when the Russians were there, when the Soviets were there, I mean, that's another whole story, because after the Russians came the Soviets, and they treated the people very harshly. And that's you know, that's a story that I'm learning. But now they are very happy to be free of Soviet, although they're not free of it, because it's in the administration, it's in their thinking still. They still have that, you know, strongly there, but it's changing slowly. But what too? It's changing to the European or the American model, and they are sliding down that slope, you know, this time. So I find myself often trying to hold them back, you know, just warning them of what might lie ahead, you know, of them. But anyway, feel free, please ask me. Yeah.
I'm curious how you ended up in Tashkent. For me, it's it's a far away.
Yeah, good question. Thank you. It was through my. I've been in the teaching English for a long time, and a group of teachers from the university I work in, University of World Languages in Tashkent, came to Norwich, which is where my hometown in England, you could say, where my family is, and they were doing a professional training course. It happened to be Ramadan, and they were really missing pilav. They just could not find halal food, and they were very particular about that. So when they found out that we were doing the Eid, and they came to our Eid prayer, and then we had rice and meat, you know, they were just delighted. And from that, I met one man, Jahangir, and we became friends. And then I started visiting. I was traveling in China, and I would fly back through Tashkent, give a seminar with teachers, and then the connection grew from there. And I'm very happy to be there. I mean, it's the safest place for women that I have ever visited in my life. Any woman and students, I mean, we've got 25,000 students in the university. Most of them are girls. They can go out and and they just put their hand up in the street and a car will stop and they can make an arrangement for the price to go where, and then they get in, and it's unheard of anywhere else, really. I mean, could that happen here? I don't know. Anyway, it happens there, and it really does feel like that there is the brother-sister relationship that prevails. And that comes from the family, which is still so strong. And most of the girls that I know will marry the boy of their parents' choice. I mean, not without some problems. I mean, one hears about the difficulties, as I heard about the difficulties between love marriage and arranged marriages in India in 1977. I mean, that was all the talk. And of course, Bollywood films were presenting all these things. But then, yeah, now looking back on it, when a girl leaves her village, leaves her environment, leaves her family to go west, to come here maybe, to come to London or go to America, at what cost? And when and if anything happens, any trouble happens, maybe the relationship she may have fallen into falls down, who's going to support her? What happens in that situation? The family's not there. So, I mean, that is something one sees in Uzbekistan. The family is just very strong still. But then making all these high-rise Chinese-like tall buildings, and of course living in those buildings changes the nature of the society. Traditionally, in Uyghuristan and Uzbekistan, I heard recently that parents, when they had a child, would plant 20 or 18 or 21 poplar trees. They're called tirek in Turkish, dilek in Turkish, tirek in Uzbek. You know what I mean by poplar trees, the tall ones, which they grow alongside the water, at water's edge. And they feed them, they tend them, and then after 18 years, when the child is ready to marry, then they cut them down, and then they build another section of the house. They get people from the village. It's called hasha. Hasha, do you have that word? It's when they all come together to collectively build, and they build an extra room or an apartment for the family. Well, in the case of the girl, it'll be the girl who comes into the husband's family, and that was how it worked. And of course, no planning, and
No mortgage.
no mortgage. It was just a natural way, and people could afford to. So today, becoming independent, becoming an individual, becoming individuated in the Western way, it comes at quite a cost. But a lot of the girls that I teach, they kind of pulled that way because it's exotic, it's exciting. There's a lot of selfies and photographs and makeup and all these things that they get involved in. But and going back to the village, because most of them live in villages, they think is a little boring. It's a bit boring, and so they kind of they're pulled towards that city life and then what comes with it. But you know that better than I do. I mean, I've learned that from being alongside. I never had a family around me in the same way because my father sent me to a military school, and I was going to be trained to become, the next flunky in the British Empire. I was going to be out there sort of with my cane. Anyway, so that's that. Yeah, does that answer your question? I'm sure it does. And more. Any others? Yeah.
You were telling us about the girl, 16-year-old, and you were ready for the spirit to meet.
Yeah.
So what happened after that? How that event affected you? I am also interested to, like, you're converted, right? Converted to Islam, right?
Yeah.
So what was your thought?
Well, I think I hinted it. When I went out, I was not a hippie. I look a bit hippie-ish, but I was trying to be a bit cleverer than a hippie. And so, and I was a sportsman. I was a sportsman, so I wasn't very interested in sitting around smoking hashish. And it was just boring for me. And so I wanted to do something, and I did this academic work. It was a village study. And I ended up, but I dumped the study. I put the study on one side, and I really wanted to find proof of the unseen world, okay? So what happened, the story I've told you about Jumaila is...
What did you find out?
How did I find her?
What did you find out?
What I found out that, after that night, with all the other things that had happened to me, I said, okay, I believe it. I do believe in the ghaib and the unseen. And it wasn't something that I could then the next day say, no, I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that. No, it was a commitment. And as in Surah Al-Baqarah, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألف لام ميم ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين الذين يؤمنون بالغيب ويقيمون الصلاة. So that was my door. I started to believe in the ghaib, and that was what I was asking for, without really understanding it. We had been reading books and other things which were leading us to the East. The East was more interesting than the church, that we were kind of pushing away. We didn't really want that. So we were being led to the East to answer questions like, what is the sound of one hand clapping? Or can you step into the same river twice? These kind of Zen questions were tickling us to go and explore. And it was a spiritual enterprise which came about from a reaction to the new consumerism, I think, that was hitting town. The American dream, a house, a car, all the things that you're supposed to have. So we were reacting to that, I think. And then the Vietnam War was another thing which kind of led us to peace. And so, does that answer your question?
Actually, why I asked you, I have written my thesis. I had written when I was a student in Sweden. So my thesis was Peer and Murshid in the discourse of power politics of Pakistan.
Right.
So I'm also convert, and my background is Hindu.
Yeah.
So when convert is, then they are very keen to answer all the questions. What is happening? And in my house, I've seen my grandmother used to go to shrines and take something in the necks and ask dua. In fact, we belong to that family. So I thought, and every time my mommy and father they take us some peer for shifa and these all things. I have had a question since my childhood that there's God. He is the one who do everything. When I converted, then I read out in Islam also says that we have a direct connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so we don't need an intercessor or something. So when I did a research about this one, and I took 2 shrines in Pakistan, in Karachi in the city, and another shrine was in a village, the Kalandar Lord Shehbaz in Pakistan. So what I've met people, and I researched the people, they used to say me, actually, they are Mokkal, that there are some, like you said, that the 16 years old girl, she had some, person coming and had a shadow told something. There's Mokkal, they connecting this wali Kalandar Shahbaz,
Yes.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we are actually praying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they are taking our request in front of Allah. One person told us like this in Karachi.
Sorry, what was that bit? What's the what was the last sentence?
They said me that actually we are not praying this wali, the Kalandar.
Okay, we're not praying to the wali.
Yeah, no, but actually they are taking our request towards Allah, the God, because they are very close to God. Another told me when doing my research that is in a city in Karachi. This is I forgot that shrine. The person told me that actually in the night hands are coming from the graves, and they ask us what you need, and we are many things, And the lady took us for the research. She was a government officer. She was prostrating her head on the floor towards the shrines.
Yeah.
I asked her, why do you sajda? We are used to do sajda in front of Allah only.
Yeah.
She said, what are you saying? We are not doing sajda to them.
Yeah.
They are very good person. They are connected. Well, I was that time very shaky. What is happening? Being new convert and I'm doing research. But then in the end, like you answered yourself, ghaiba. I read out this ayah, ghaiba. So the question answer comes, they say intercession. We say intercession, we cannot do. Only the direct intercession we can do with our amal. Oh Allah, this is our good deeds.
Yeah.
If you like it, so this one. So I did myself to, I don't know, because something we know, of course, ghaiba, but not intercession. Then I met another lady, the clean hair and the sleeping on the floor of in Kalandar of the shrine. And I asked her, in Islam, you have to take bath. You should wash your body. What are you doing? She said, no, we are here until unless Kalandar Shahbaz, it's something we are not going to do. Then my question is, where is Tahara in Islam? You know what people are doing? Who are doing? Like you're talking about Chinese people, they, opium, they used to.
Yeah.
My answer come on the back. The government is doing, building this shrine. The people, they don't give the democratic power to people for health and jobs, and they're making busy them just go in their areas.
Well,
But still, I was confused about the society.
right. Well, let me say a couple of things about that. That sounds, from what I understood you were saying, very similar to what I see happening in China, which is that they seem to be creating a neo-Buddhism, which is to attract the attention of a huge number of people who want a spiritual focus. Even though, we think of the Chinese as being sort of materialist or atheist or whatever, but that was just a phase, during the communist time with Mao Zedong. But now they are building huge temples for Buddha or of some kind of Buddha. And people are making pilgrimage to those places. There's one island off Shanghai called Putuo Shan, where there's a huge lotus temple, and there are monks and nuns who reside there, and people come and visit on pilgrimage, and they throw the money they throw it anywhere. They throw it over the cliffs. They throw it all over the place. But what I felt was that it's a kind of alternative they have come up with to Disneyland. The West has Disneyland and all that, and they got all the children involved in fantasy, and I saw here coming into the station today, all the funfair in front of the station, sort of taking the children into a fantasy world. And I've reflected on that. In China, it's still new because the religion was banned. There was no religion. What I would say about Islam is that what I think that the Seljuks, the Turks, have done, but not only, they leave their people behind. When their teachers die, they make a tomb, you know, for that, and then people come and visit. The question of praying in towards them or making, you know, asking for intercession from them is a, I don't know, what would you say about that? It's a question of, is that a matter of, what is it? I mean,
The political issue.
well, it's politics. Yeah, I get the point of
Because,
what you're saying. It distracts people from.
Yeah, it is there from,
yeah.
their rights.
But I mean, the way I see it is that what the Muslims did was they left their people rather than flags and rather than sort of strange institutions. They left the people, and so people come back and remember them, and they make pilgrimage to those places and ziyarat, I don't know what you call it. But I think for me, how I deal with it is in the Surah Al-Fatiha, after you've asked to stay on the Sirat al-Mustaqim, you say Sirat al-Ladina an'amta alayhim. So who are they? Who are those people? I mean, so that requires you to reflect on the people who came before us and the great sheikhs and the Sufis that we model on. But that's, essentially it comes back to, they should take us back to the Rasul.
I think the matter here is the difference between a living teaching and a dead teacher. And so when things become ossified, there's a focus on the dead people.
Yeah.
And that actually the thing that really matters is the living teaching.
Yeah. And, you know, I was reading today something that somebody said. It says, I don't know about the way of the East is to get rid of impurities. Now, when I was studying anthropology in India, I understood that cleanliness and hygiene were not part of India in a way, you know, because that's what shocks many people going to India. It's a place where it's kind of dirty, but they go into the rivers, which are not clean, to be purified, you know, and purity is much more the issue in the East. And this was, you know, this is what somebody said, a sheikh said, the way of the East is to get rid of impurities. The way of the West, and I've got in brackets here, Sheikh Shazali, is to fall in love with Allah. I don't know if that's oversimplifying it, but I've written it down as a sort of mnemonic for me. Yeah, may Allah guide us. May Allah guide you, and we can, you know, we can clarify these matters by openly questioning, thinking about it, and asking, you know, for that. But you know, alhamdulillah, thank you so much for coming and hearing my stuff. But if you want, I mean, I ask if there's one more question. I don't know what time we should finish it.
We could also just meet informally, just conversations together.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, I was just curious about, it was written that you have been to Xinjiang province in China, and as we have heard some years ago, now we don't hear so much about it anymore, but that the Chinese make some camps for Muslims to like make them go away from Islam. Have you seen anything about this?
No, absolutely no. They want to eradicate Islam. I mean, that is as happened with the communists, the Russians. They wanted to eradicate Islam before, in the time of the Soviets. I was reading the other day that they thought when they heard the dhikr from the Sufis that it was dangerous because they thought that the dhikr was sort of against communism in some way, you know, and so they wanted to squash the places where the Sufis were. The camps, sending people to Siberia, sending people to horrible places, you know, from Central Asia to die cutting railway sleepers in the forests up in the cold was a terrible fate for people. What the Chinese are doing is what they tried to do with the Cultural Revolution, is to try to kind of brainwash people. And so by taking children away, as I think that's probably the case, and separating parents and so on, all I can say is that the Chinese they are still keeping communism alive in Xinjiang. The tallest statue for Mao Zedong is still there, and the soldiers and the police march past every day, and they keep it alive. What happened in 2014? You can check this on YouTube or whatever. Not YouTube. What do you call it? Wikipedia. There was during the sort of Daesh and ISIL time of these people in the desert, some young people had heard that the imam of this mosque, which is the Eidgah Mosque, very famous mosque in Kashgar, was making a deal with the Chinese to limit the number of children for Muslims to 2 or 3, something like that. Chinese, of course, at that time were only allowed 1. But they were trying to limit the number of children that Muslims had. And so after a Jummah, 2 boys from, I forget the name of the town that they came from, but one came, and then one was they came in with machetes, and they killed the imam in front of everybody in the mosque. And, well, you know, the Chinese could not accept that. They said, no, that's not acceptable. So they then started to repress people. Then there was more fighting with machetes, and then they banned all knives. Muslims being famous cutlers, being knife makers. Then all the butchers had to chain their cutting implements to the bottom of the table, and then work with only those. All knives were banned. And then, a man came to me. I met a guy who'd cycled from Hong Kong, actually, to Xinjiang, and I asked him about it, and he said, well, there's a saying in Chinese that 2 small fires can set a city alight. So 2 small fires. So what do you do if you see a fire? You know, a small fire, you stamp on it. So that's what the Chinese have done. They have stamped on it. The rightfulness of them being in Xinjiang is another matter. I met archaeologists who were working with the Chinese, and this guy told me that they are fudging the information. They are creating evidence to prove that the Chinese were there. And they were there back in the day for a while. They were there for a while, but they're trying to prove that they have a right to the whole land. When they were first welcomed by the Uyghur people, they were welcomed and they were invited. You know, they were invited into the house, but as with the Palestinians, you know, it's exactly the same. They turned against them, and then this same man had to dig up his own parents and rebury them because they were making a road through a graveyard. You know, so I mean, that's what's happening there. Yeah. Does that answer your question? What was it?
Yeah, it was about the Uyghurs.
Yeah, about the Uyghur. I mean, the Uyghurs. I mean, I've got friends in London who are exiled Uyghurs, and of course they're involved in all the kind of politics of return or autonomy. But what happened was that in 1947, 8, I can't remember exactly the date. They wanted, and Russia backed them. They wanted to have an autonomous Xinjiang. Well, they didn't call it. Xinjiang is Chinese. It means furthest province to the west or something like that. It means the far away province. They wanted an autonomous Uyghur country, state, I don't know.
East Turkestan, isn't it?
Well, East Turkestan was the old name for the whole area.
The whole area.
Uyghur language is the same as Uzbek, almost identical. The food is the same. You can easily understand them. But that for a while, for a year or so, they had a uniform, they had a flag, they had established a basic kind of parliament, and they were getting support from the Russians. So they were trying, but the Chinese didn't like that, and so what did they do? They sent in the bravest people who had fought Japanese to get the Japanese out of China. Who were they? The Hui Muslims. They sent the Chinese Muslims to attack the Turkic Muslims, and they suppressed, they put down the attempt to make an autonomous Uyghuristan. And of course, there's not much trust between the Hui, who are Han Chinese, and the Turkic Uyghur Chinese, Uyghur. So, and there's a saying that never do a deal with a Hui Muslim unless you've got a dagger in your belt. You know, I mean, things like that. So that was clever of the Chinese, but very unfortunate for us. But in those days, the Hui Muslims were not very well, let's say, educated. They didn't know their deen very well, and they were following communist principles, and they were very brave. And now, if you go to Xinjiang, not Xinjiang, to Xi'an, to Chang'an, the place I mentioned, where that wooden mosque is, you'll find that they're very important, very famous again now for not just the history, but for their food and everything. And of course, the Muslims are known for their great food. And as long as the Muslims behave like a minority and wear pretty clothes and dance and play music, they're acceptable, as long with all the other minorities in China. Yeah.
How long is Xi'an to Beijing? How far is that?
Xi'an to Beijing. About, by train, bullet train, about 4 hours, something like that. I mean, it's not very far, 4 or 5 hours. I can't remember exactly, but I would really recommend that the borders are open now. That you can go into China for a visa without a visa for, I don't know about Danes, but I would imagine so. Turks can't, but you should be able to. And then I think you can have 30 days. If you go in, you can take these trains, go to Dunhuang, which is where Xuanzang, and the Buddhists came. Fantastic caves with beautiful paintings on. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, so 4 hours or so. Yeah.
So it's not part of the Beijing area.
What, the Xi'an? No, it's quite a long way. It's near Chengdu. It's near the pandas. It's over towards the west. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we should go.
I'm just thinking we've taken a lot. You've been really generous.
No,
and I think we've taken a lot. I don't want to wear you out.
No, thank you. Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
And may we see, real change coming in. And I do think, our Sheikh said, you know, that Uzbekistan and Central Asia is going to be really important for the coming change in the deen. Yeah.
Can I just ask a quick question? Do you have a homepage with some of these things you research?
No, not really. No. Sorry.
Facebook.
No, I don't have a blog. I just travel and teach a bit. But I should. Well, inshallah, yeah, I will. I mean, I write some things down, and I know I should write a little bit more to get, you know, some of these things out. But so I was happy to be able to tell you what I can tell you. But alhamdulillah for Islam, and alhamdulillah for everything that we have, because it really is a blessing, and in these difficult times. Yeah. So thank you. Yes.
Can I just one last short question? What is, in your point of view, what is the biggest threat is facing this new countries?
Which country?
Tashkent, all these things, what is the biggest threat they're facing the younger generations? Where do you see?
Coca-Cola. I mean, they own the place. They own the place. The franchises, all the KFCs, the rubbish food, Big Pharma. They get sick. They take all this poison that they're drinking, and they get sick. They go to the Dorikhona, they call them, the chemists, and they take pills. Then they take more pills for those symptoms. And no, it's a downward thing. Actually, their food is amazing, really delicious, and of course very healthy. Lovely sheep from the hills, and eating, and so they're just eating KFC and Big Macs and things like that, and they think that's cool, like they did in Russia, because it's the trendy thing to do. Anyway, alhamdulillah.
Thank you for coming.
All right,
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Let's give them a hand.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
May Allah reward you.
I mean,
A real treat.
I'll take this off. I don't know if that works. And here's your thing. I don't know if that works as well. They probably went against each other.